Welcome. This is Option Contract Basics. My name is Jeffrey Smith. Two fundamental kinds of option contracts. There are two fundamental kinds of option contracts. Number one, the call option, and number two, the put option. The call option is a right to buy, and the put option is a right to sell. In basic contract law, an unaccepted offer to buy or an unaccepted offer to sell can be withdrawn at any time before the other party unconditionally accepts the offer. If the accepted offer includes contingencies precedent to the offer becoming executory, then the offer is a contingent contract. An executory contract is a mutually accepted offer that includes further duties by either or both parties before the offer becomes an executed contract. An executed contract is completed immediately when all contingencies are satisfied or removed. Both executory and executed contracts imply an exchange of equitable interests, while contingent contracts do not. Equitable interest. The unaccepted offer or the unexercised option grants no equitable interest in the underlying asset because there is no unconditional mutual acceptance of the transaction. In some situations, contingency clauses can be included in the purchase and sale agreement, the PSA, to act as if the mutually accepted PSA is an option contract, because unsatisfied contingency, that is, conditional, clauses defer the executory contract status until all contingencies are satisfied or removed. That is, the status is a contingent contract. An option contract suspends the offeror's right to withdraw the offer for a specific time period. The offeror's right to withdraw the offer is restored after the time period expires. Usually, the withdrawal of the offer is automatically concurrent with the expiration of the option contract. Purchase and sale agreement. An option contract transacting realty may include an attached PSA that is signed and acknowledged, that is notarized, only by the optionor, to be exercised by the counterparty optionee by signing the PSA, or the option contract may include all of the salient terms of a PSA, and the option contract ripens into a PSA upon exercise by the optionee. An option contract transacting personalty has an attached assignment agreement that is signed and acknowledged, that is notarized, only by the optionor, to be signed by the optionee upon exercise. The optionor, the seller, is the assignor for the call option, and the optionee, the buyer, is the assignee. The optionor, the buyer, is the assignee for the put option, and the optionee, the seller, is the assignor. Specific performance. The call option is equivalent to an offer to sell the asset, and the put option is equivalent to an offer to buy the asset. Either kind of offer suspends for a specific time period the optionor's right to withdraw the offer, and implicitly includes a specific performance clause requiring the optionor and optionee to complete transaction upon exercise of the option according to the specified terms. The specific performance clause can be explicitly amended or included to allow, for example, the substitution of the asset with an equivalent asset, or for the cash settlement of the difference in the option strike price, that is, the mutually agreed value, and the current market value of the asset. Equitable exchange of consideration. As a separate contract, the option contract must include an equitable exchange of consideration, which is called option consideration, in the form of money, products, or services of mutually agreed value rendered by the optionee in exchange for the optionor assuming the burden and risk of specific performance to complete the transaction upon exercise. Option consideration is non-refundable, except when the optionor fails to perform, in addition to damages and penalties for breach of contract, either in equity or at law. The equivalent of option consideration for a PSA is a non-refundable earnest money deposit, EMD. EMD is rendered by the buyer, effective optionee, for a call offer, and the seller is the effective optionor. EMD is rendered by the seller, effective optionee, for a put offer, and the buyer is the effective optionor. The offerer, effective optionor, executes the contract and receives the EMD from the other party, effective optionee. The effective optionee signs the offer as the counterparty, that is, exercises the option and completes the transaction. Using the PSA as an effective option contract. Most real estate brokers are not allowed to write option contracts on behalf of their clients because that is unauthorized practice of law, UPL. A licensed real estate broker can write an unaccepted offer to transact, for example, buy or sell, realty on behalf of the client, effective optionor, and explicitly suspend the right to withdraw until expiration, which will act as an effective option contract for the counterparty, effective optionee. At a simultaneous closing of purchasing the effective option contract, the effective optionee renders the EMD, and the effective optionor signs and acknowledges, that is, notarizes the contract and the conveyance documents, and then all are escrowed with a neutral third party to be held for acceptance by the counterparty signing the contract when the counterparty is ready to close the transaction, that is, effectively exercise the option. Reasonable accommodations are made when the effective optionee is rendering EMD as products or services as the effective option consideration. Rendering the earnest money deposit, EMD. Remember, the effective optionee renders the non-refundable EMD as the effective option consideration to compensate the effective optionor for assuming the burden and risk of specific performance before the offer expires. For an effective call option, the buyer, effective optionee, renders the EMD and therefore decides when to call the asset from the seller, effective optionor. For an effective put option, the seller, effective optionee, renders the EMD and therefore decides when to put the asset to the buyer, effective optionor. By the way, the effective put option is similar to a traditional PSA offer where the buyer submits a signed PSA, giving the seller the choice, that is, option, of whether to accept, that is, put the property to the buyer. However, the broker strongly encourages the buyer to include an EMD. To be an effective put option, the PSA would have the seller render the non-refundable EMD. The PSA would have a specific performance clause for the buyer, and the seller would not countersign the PSA until ready to put the property to the buyer. This has been Option Contracts Basics. My name is Jeffrey Smith. Thank you for the opportunity to serve.